Make friends. We roll this phrase off the tongue so freely as if it's a statement being mailed at the end of the month. This bill we have declared to come so easy gives me queasiness in my chest, and when I rest my head upon my pillow at night, I fight the urge to combust into particles and dust because I must make something out of similarities and exchanges that feel forced and dangerous to explore. I don't want trends and likes and hearts, but friends with heart who like street art and hip hop from gangster rappers with money chains, ones who make strange remarks about little details, setting them apart from normal people, equal opportunity to engage in banter that is self-deprecating, debating politics, but only if you've left me changed for the better. Singing at the top of our lungs for fun at a stoplight, tight jeans getting unbuttoned at the seams when we eat extremes amount of bread, laughing our heads off in tears, strolling down our face while we embrace the fears ahead, sitting in bed saying, no, you need to wear this instead. How do I make friends like that in this habitat?
And the green one, and the blue one, and the yellow one, and the red one, and the fox, and the green.
Hello, and welcome to the You Can Call Me Karen podcast, where we will discuss events and experiences from the world around us in an effort to highlight our similarities rather than our differences. I'm Monica Rosa, and I am joined by two of my dearest friends, Stephanie J. and Karen Horwitz.
Hey.
Pew, pew. We are wrapping up our friendship series this week, which I am sad to do, but excited about our discussion for today. It's really, this series has really made me think deeply about my closest relationships and how I value them more than I actually realize. So I'm excited to jump into our convo, but you know what we got to do before we get into the mix? Let's check in with my co-host and see how they are doing today and hear their latest, who you calling Karen? Stories. So, Steph, hello. How are you? Tell us, who you calling Karen this week?
Well, hello. So first of all, when you said pew pew, I just wanted to share a funny story because um, I'm Jamaican and my husband is Polish, and so
Obviously.
and we were talking to our daughter. My husband was like, Quinn, Jamaican something, do 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 do. I was like, honey, it's not that. That's not how it goes. And he was like, the horn, like the Jamaican horn. I know what you were trying to do, but it's not. So, and he was like, oh, okay. Anyway, love you, Bill. I love you, Bill.
That is amazing. I know what you were trying.
I understand where you were headed with that. So
I can just totally picture it.
So my Karen story is it's a Karen adjacent story again. Like I was not personally involved, but I was chatting with my coworker. She deals with all of the emails and communications with parents, and God bless her. Like, I don't know how she does this day in and day out. And we were chatting and she said, man, I just got beat up really hard by one of the parents complaining because there was a change in the schedule, and it was posted in all the appropriate places, but the mom missed it and lit her up via email saying that if the schedule is changed, here is how I expect it to be communicated. And she said it like that via email. And already email is up for interpretation. So when you're, so and if it's a complaint, even if it was written nicely, you're already going to feel a little defensive. But it wasn't written nicely, and basically she was like she wants it in flashing lights. Like, we're supposed to tailor our communication to her because she has so much on her plate, but as if like we don't have a lot on ours. And I just felt like it just made me mad, because things change all the time, and how are we supposed to communicate? Like, anyway, I that was a very Karen thing to do, and I feel like sometimes, not sometimes, especially the parents that we're dealing with are, there are a lot of Karens. There are a lot of Karens
Mhm.
that have their children come to our studio, and I'm not saying that disrespectfully. There's just a lot of them who feel entitled. They feel like we owe them, and they come crazy, and they forget that there's a human being behind the email. There's a human
Mhm.
being who reads the email and has to make next step decisions, and it's just upsetting. It makes me mad.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think, what I'm like sensing from these like Karen stories is that there's just this loss of understanding for how to exist in collaborative spaces,
Mm-hmm.
like,
Yeah.
and I think that when we defined Karen in our first episodes, we talked about the entitlement, and it's that it's the entitlement in the sense that like other people, we have these things so that everybody can have a shared experience, right? And so
Mhm.
when you come into these like so guns blazing just because it doesn't match your needs, it really is unfortunate and disappointing, like you said, because there's several other students who are also participating at this thing. It's not just you. And
Mhm.
so just that lack of consideration for the shared space is like what
Mm-hmm.
I'm sensing about like what kind of is the unfortunate thing about
Mm-hmm.
society right now.
Yeah, it's like we're maximizing our individualistic culture. Like everything needs to serve me
Me
individually.
personally, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is we operate in a lot of common spaces and need to do more for the, like the whole as opposed to the individual. And but nobody, it's like I'm going to harp on social media again, but it's like this instant gratification. Everything has to be tailored for me. I have a platform.
Mm-hmm.
It's just frustrating. Um, so on that note, my Karen, your topic there, Steph, made me think about actually a moment that I had yesterday battling my own inner Karen. So we're going through this process in school, my son's school, to make sure he has what he needs to be successful. Just in the classroom, and I reached out to the school to see if we can set up some time to make sure he has like the right plans for this year. And the principal responded immediately. Gosh, his principal is amazing. I'm not going to call him out by name, but I maybe will with his permission in the future. But he's absolutely fantastic. He responded. It's still summer, by the way. He responded within, I think, 20 minutes of me submitting just a form email on their website. So, like, fantastic. And just basically explained, like, okay, once the school year starts, this is what you're going to do. This is the point of contact. You're all set. We're excited to see you. And that was great. And I was responding to say thank you for the very quick response. And there is this thing that I've been toiling with, because one of my son's best friends at school, and he and my son tend to be quite distracting to others. They like feed on each other. My son is high energy. He has a hard time paying attention. He's very young, and this other boy like seems of like similar level of energy. And so when you put them in a classroom together, it is very challenging for both of them, and I'm sure for the teacher. And so I have been debating how to ask kindly to put them in separate classrooms. And so I started to type this email and say, thank you, principal, like for your quick response. Oh, by the way, can you please separate these boys? And to your point about like the tone and how people interpret emails, I like couldn't find a way to write it that I thought would be received appropriately. And so I didn't send it. I deleted it. I fought my inner Karen urges. And I didn't send this email, but I don't really know how to handle this. Like, I do want to position not only my son, but, his friend for success. And I think, at least for the next couple of years, being in separate classrooms would benefit them, as much as that would pain my son, to be away from his best friend. But anyways, I don't know how to handle this. It's like I feel like I need to say it, but then as soon as I say it, I'm going to feel like the world's biggest Karen. So I don't know. Anyways, that's my inner Karen battle this week.
Say it. You got to say it. You got to ask. It's better to, it's better to do it now too, once, like, before the rosters have been set. I would like, you're right. Like, it's better for both of the kids if they are a distraction. I've gotten the email before where I'm like, been said, hey, they weren't being asked to be separated, like, out of the different classes, but just don't sit them by each other. And just knowing those kind of things ahead of time, it can be rectified if they are in the same class, too. So, like, if they happen to be in the same classes, you don't know if they're going to be, you could just let the teacher know that they need to be separated, and then they can mitigate it that way too. But if it's better if they're just not even in the same class before any rosters are set, you could do it that way. But
so what's a good way to
disagree with Steph?
You disagree?
I slightly disagree with sending the email, because I see this a lot, but if everybody's request was granted, then how do we do that? So I've seen this happen in this kind of really hurt classrooms in my community, specifically the second and third grade classrooms, where classes were stacked because parent request to not be with quote unquote certain students left an imbalance. And I think we talk about natural rhythm, and they're going into first grade. So I would just be curious about that natural rhythm, especially since you are getting supports put in this year, to let that
play out a little bit.
Yeah, before intervening in the process.
You right, girl. You right.
You guys, we just make each other better.
Right. I'm just so used to we literally bend over backwards for anybody in my district. And but when you talked about the classes that are stacked because of so much movement, you're absolutely right that happens, because I've been on the receiving end of that, where my whole team is just stacked with and so I forget about that, and I'm usually just in a position where I just have to deal with how stacked with behaviors my room is and just live with it. And anyway, sometimes letting the natural
sorry to interrupt. It reminds me of what you were talking about last podcast with your dance teacher, and how much goes into formulating, right? And I think it just is, for me personally, as an educator, the autonomy of my craft and my knowing. I want to be able to figure out this matrix because I'm an expert and I respect parents' opinions. So I like the idea and the suggestion of, should something pop off, of having a conversation of, could we potentially look at separating them so they don't sit next to each other, or having other strategies for that. But I like to give educators the benefit of the doubt that they have talked about this and had conversations, or that there has been some sort of consideration, and to not knock them off or throw them off of their game.
And I guess give the kids a chance to
give the kids a chance
rise.
too.
Maybe they, a summer, kids come back a little more mature, things can change over time.
Yeah.
That's a good point, man. I'm so reactionary. I'm spending too much time with people who demand a lot of us, and we literally just okay, whatever you want.
This is why I love these conversations, because you both have given me different perspectives that are both helpful. And I didn't honestly know what to do in that moment. So I really appreciate y'all. That was
I
very
think that
helpful.
I think though, to bring it all back to the who you calling Karen, you did know what to do. And I read this quote, it's been passed around as a gif or whatever, I don't know, a meme, but maturity is deleting the text and typing back, okay.
Mhm.
Right?
Mhm.
It's
And
deleting
that's
the whole thing and
almost
typing back,
literally what I
okay.
did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I loved that point in the story where like you had the insight to pause.
Mhm.
Hmm.
That's what didn't make you a Karen in that situation.
Not the
Yeah.
Karen,
But I
girl.
think it is
Not the
important
Karen.
to realize like we all have an inner Karen.
Yes.
I also have an outer Karen because that is my unfortunate name. But but it's okay to like check that, and like take a moment. I'm gonna let you get onto the topic, but like I always think back to um, I am very responsive. Like I think on my feet. If somebody says something, I say a response. And I have had to train myself over the years, like in work, for example. If somebody would send an email, I'd fire an email right back as soon as I got it. Like that's just how my brain works. And over the years, I've trained myself to like take a moment. If I read something and it triggers me in any way, any kind of emotional reaction, I know like that's my role. You will reread it later and you will respond later when you're out of that headspace. And
Mhm.
so, it's nice to see that I've got that in place. And I did that without realizing I was doing it last night.
Mhm.
Um, but I do think that's important for all of us because I think it's that immediate brash reaction that brings out our Karens. And if we can just pause and breathe, some of that might be avoided. So,
Mhm.
anyways, maybe a good time to shift into our topic for the day.
No, I love that. That's a great segue. So this has been a wonderful conversation. This is our friendship series, our first ever series on the pod. And we are at episode 3, our final episode or topic. And we hope that it has inspired our listeners to think about the energy and the sacrifices that you make in your lives to nurture and foster these very important relationships. We've talked about old friendships, and we last podcast talked about friendship breakups. And I personally, as I was researching for this topic, it occurred to me that it's a combination of these two life experiences that dictate how we approach new friendships in adulthood. So, with that, let's get started. Okay, so I think where I want to start off today is how I introduced the podcast and the poem that I read, if that's okay with y'all.
It's
To give
not.
a
It's not okay.
Oh, okay, fine. We'll just jump right in. Me first. There she is. No,
I couldn't resist.
to give a little bit of context, though, I wrote that poem when I was doing a poem a day in April in 2023. It's kind of like a thing that poets, I guess, started doing, where you write a poem a day and you just like get into the rhythm of like writing a poem. Anyway, I
You are so talented, by the way. I just need
Mhm.
to say that out
That
loud.
poem was beautiful.
oh, I
Hmm.
appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. Um, well, let's just end the podcast there.
Okay. Bye. New friendships. Everybody go get them.
But I was feeling alienated in this new community because I had moved in 2020, and I was surprised at this feeling because I'd lived there for almost 3 years, and I thought when I moved, like, oh, it's going to be so easy for me to make friends. Like, I got this, like, and I wasn't really intimately connecting with people, and it was that poem that made me realize like why is it so difficult to make friends when you get older. And it wasn't until our recent conversations on this podcast that I was able to see with clarity that I have some boundaries that I place. And I think, Steph, you talked about this
Mm.
in the last podcast, um, that I have this orbit, and I don't easily let people into my personal space. And even though I, have publicly share on this podcast platform, I perform spoken word poetry. I'm a teacher. I'm still very private, which that combined with me, I don't go out and I drink. I'm sober. I also don't like small talk. So this makes me really inaccessible in today's society, right? So I'm realizing that part of this is due to heartbreak from the past. Our last conversation made me think about like all the wounds that I have from like various heartbreak of friendships. And it takes a lot of energy to mourn like a breakup, and being that I have 3 kids, my energy is like one of my biggest assets. So I protect it. And I also am a rationalizer. So, in order for me to kind of escape this like fear, I'm like, well, I already have like all these friends from college and I already have these friends from high school. So, like, I don't need any more friends.
By the way, I say that all the time. I don't need
I
any
say it
more
all the
I
time
friends.
don't need
too.
any more friends,
It's
right?
work. Yeah, and I want to
Yes,
honor the ones
yes.
that I
So,
have.
right, right. And that is just like such a scarcity mindset, right? Like, who am I to say that like friendship isn't abundant, that it is unlimited, right? And so, what I found during this process is that I was actually like isolating and getting lonelier, and I was not protecting my mental health like I thought I was. I was actually destroying it. Um, particularly because I have kids and I live in this family oriented community, I was like forced into opening up. But I was through a lot of therapy and mentorship. I was asked or questioning, like, how do I do this? What way feels safe? I mean, the political climate, I live in a predominantly white area. My psychological safety felt threatened. Where can I find people whose interests are aligned with mine or whose interests don't annoy me to the point where I pop off and I like have now a reputation of being whatever you might want to fill in there. So, anyway, what I wanted to bring into the podcast today was the question of, and I think, Steph, you started to allude to this last podcast. And admittedly, I knew this was going to be a topic that I wanted to bring up today. So I kind of like brushed over and didn't get very deep into it when you said it. But what are some of the red flags that you've experienced when trying to make new friends as adults? Because I think that is like the first layer of this, right? We talked about the ick last time. We talked about the like
Mhm.
gossip. That's what you were talking about. You talked about like the
Yes.
gossip as being like a signal of like, wait a sec, right? So, like, what are some of the red flags that you've experienced, and how do you kind of like, I'm thinking of, we shared this Instagram feed with the Jay Salazar, I think is his name, where he's like, I like
Oh
trans
my gosh.
parent people, like,
His videos are so
his
funny.
facial
Hilarious.
reactions are amazing. Shout out to him.
Yes.
I love him so much.
We
But
will
how,
link him in this
yes, we
episode.
will link him. But how do you test the waters, and what happens when you have a red flag, or what's your experience in this with trying to make new friendships? Ready, set, go.
Yeah, it's funny. So in addition to being, I know I talk about the studio a lot, but I also am a school teacher and I've taught 8th grade, I've taught 6th grade. And when I first started teaching, I taught 8th grade. And I mentioned this last episode, like a lot of my coworkers were similar in age. We would eat lunch together and mostly just sharing stories like about our kids. I didn't have kids at the time. I wasn't even engaged or married at the time, and just kind of whatever. And I would just catch where they would talk about people in our building in a
Mm,
negative light. And I was like, "Whoa, that's a red flag." I would catch where, like, something embarrassing may have happened to somebody and they would retell that story like over and over again and laugh really hard about it. It's like, oh, that's a red flag. And I would notice too, like, there was a group that they truly were friends. They spent a lot of time with each other outside of school, and I was never invited. to that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so but they would always be like, "Oh, you're my friend," and like, "How are you doing?" And like to my face and stuff. And I'm like, "Okay, but I'm single, free, and you guys don't invite me to
Yeah.
join you on stuff like that you're doing." So
Loud and clear.
but when but I feel like if I lacked maturity or lacked like, what it is I have such good friends. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm constantly comparing new relationships to what I
Mm-hmm.
have. And I'm like, you're not stacking up. Like you're not rising.
Yeah.
You're not rising to
You're
the
not
level
earning
that
that silver
you're.
medal from the
Yeah.
song.
And so, but what really put the nail in the coffin where I was like, these are not my friends. They are acquaintances. They're my coworkers. When I was moved to sixth grade, it was around the same time as I was getting married, and they were very nice. They did a shower for me. They all like got gifts and for me, and it was very sweet. They did a really nice. It was so nice, and so I sent a very heartfelt email thanking them for the gifts, and I also did a follow up paragraph saying, just I've enjoyed working with you. I'm moving grades, and hopefully we can stay in contact. And not one person wrote me back or pulled me aside and said we're really gonna miss you. Like nobody like reciprocated like the heartfelt message that I said about like our time working together. Like I learned a lot from you all. Like, and no one said anything like that back to me.
Mm.
And I was like, you're not even that good of coworkers. Like, it was just like
I don't like you anyway.
I was like, even though I didn't consider you a close friend, I did consider you colleagues. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of what I was saying was about, I did like working with them, talented educators, creative thinkers, like they were great teachers. And they, none of that was like reciprocated back to me. And I was like, okay, bye. Okay, I'm gonna just move on
That
to
just confirmed my life decisions. Thank you.
my next journey here. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I think a lot of what you said there, Steph, really resonates with me. I think, and Manny, how you opened up about like, protecting your energy and being a little bit distant from, letting people in. I definitely feel that way. I think we all we're at very busy stages of our lives, like having young children, having careers, having spouses. There's just a lot of demands on my time. And so it's overwhelming for me to think about adding, more people to my circle that I need to or want to give time and energy to. And so I feel like I tend to be guarded in that respect, and then simultaneously feel like like I have a limited set of close friends in my near like geographic proximity. I have good friends, you all, but we don't live close to each other, and sometimes it's not sometimes it is helpful to have people nearby that you can lean on.
Yeah.
But it's like at this stage in our lives, this is what I always struggle with, is like, how do you make close friends? Because when you're young, it's very clear. You go to school together, you're in the same classes, you're learning together, like you're literally growing together. In college, you're like put on a dorm floor or we're on the dance team, and you have, forced friendships that become real friendships. And then you have children, and now you're forced into these fake, like awkward relationships with your kids' friends' parents.
Right.
And it's like,
Yeah.
and so
That combination is so hard.
it's like I feel myself actively resisting making friends with these people for no reason except that it feels like it's being forced on me, and my like natural motion is to like, no, I will not accept.
Yes.
But then I met this one little girl in Maxwell's class. I met her parents recently, and I like them. And I'm like, how do I insert myself into their lives in like a not awkward way? And it's like the weirdest thing. I'm like trying to like date them.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay, so you're getting to like the next question that I have for you guys, but I want to follow up on like one thing. So, first, Steph, like what you were talking about with like gossip, um, and I think for me, my resistance with gossip is also because it feels like small talk, and I don't do small talk. Actually, I'm
Mm-hmm.
like a lot more introverted. What I'm learning, like in my sober journey, and so for me, small talk drains me, which kind of ties into what
Yeah.
you were saying, Karen, about like, how do I do this? Because like, all with regard to my energy, right? Like those kind of conversations, I, they bore me a little bit. And so
Mm-hmm.
when I first meet somebody, even at the grocery store, I'm like, so tell me your deepest, darkest secret. You know what I mean? Like I was always speaking fucking truth. Like I was not doing dare.
Mhm.
I want you to tell me like everything from the depths of your soul, right?
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
which makes it hard to your point, Steph and Karen too, of like, I have these friendships that I do have that with. We have such deep conversations when we get together and we meet, and those really fill my bucket. And so it takes a lot of time to get to that point with other
Yeah.
people. And now that I have a full life with children and a career, it feels like, where am I going to get that time, right? Um, I remember being in that phase though in the beginning where it like where you guys are, of like they're in toddlerhood or early elementary, and it's like, okay, do I like the parents and I like the kid, or I don't like the parents and I like the kid, or I like the
Mhm.
parents and I don't like the kid. You know what I mean? Like, and it's just like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
ah.
Mhm.
Um,
To me,
but
it's like Maxwell liking the kid or not. Like he likes kids, and I'm like, no to those parents. And then I like the parents, and I'm like, hey, how about this child?
right,
Mhm.
Here, take this child. He's like,
it's
get
like the
lost. Like
perfect
it's
play date, like a double
Yeah.
date with your kid, right?
yes,
Mhm.
Because
exactly.
you're not at drop off stage yet, right? You're not at
Mhm.
drop off. You have to
Mm-hmm.
spend time with them. So I will say, as your future self, it gets better, and
Mhm.
Okay.
I have a lot deeper friendships. I actually talk to one of Brielle's friends' mom every single day, um, and it is starting to be more natural. So it does get better the older that they get. I can pretty much guarantee that.
That's
Um,
Um,
encouraging.
can I
yeah.
also say, to, in defense of the gossip, because not defending gossip, but like I don't like small talk either. And it's funny that you said compared gossip to small talk, because I don't think gossip is small talk. Like I love to
Mm.
hear like stories like that. Like they make
Mm-hmm.
me laugh and stuff. So like, I'm not saying I'm not going to be judgy wudgy was a bear moment. Like when I'm not
Is
going to be
that an
judgy wudgy.
expression?
Is that a new
Yeah,
nursery rhyme
fuzzy
that I'm not
wuzzy.
aware of?
I'm not gonna be
I thought it
judgy
was
about it.
fuzzy wuzzy.
Fuzzy
It
wuzzy.
is.
It
Okay.
is. It's a okay. No.
Okay, keep it
Um,
moving, sis.
what I'm saying is the gossip. I found myself like indulging in it, like you know, and then later realizing that they spent a lot of time doing that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I knew then. And it wasn't really until like I left that grade level and like I found that the grade level I'm in now, when we are all together, all of the teachers on that teach my grade level, there isn't a lot of gossip going on. It's really a lot more like heartfelt, and it was more a reflection back. So like when I was with those women who did do a lot of gossiping, I was like, ooh, tell me the tea, girl. What? Ha, ha, ha. I was
Mm.
keying with them really. And it was funny to me. And then later I realized how toxic that was. But I also realized that it was a red flag to me because I never let them in personally, deeply.
Right, right.
And I realized later it's probably because I could tell that they talk a lot of shit about
Mm-hmm.
people, and I
Mm-hmm.
didn't, it was like a double edged sword because I thought the stories were great. They were hilarious. They were always about people I didn't know. But then like it
Yeah.
would start to be about people I
Well,
did know. And then I was like, oh wait,
Mm.
this isn't nice. Oh no. You
yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do.
So
And I think maybe that's like, I'm writing this down. Maybe that's like another topic that we like add to our, because I think that's a broader conversation. But I think you made a good point in what I sense when I pick up gossip. Because trust me, I send like stuff about Bravo celebrity gossip all the time to my friends, right? And
Yeah.
those people are human, and sometimes I forget, right? But
Hmm.
I think what hit me is that it's a mask over who you really are. So what
Mm,
happened was that you
yes.
were not really seeing them because they were constantly talking about other people and not themselves,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
Mm.
that makes it hard to get to know somebody.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely. That's definitely it.
So, okay, we have a couple minutes left. So I just want to go with the last question because Karen, you were alluding this.
Mhm.
I also, at the time of writing that poem, I was in a writing class, and my teacher made us read this article or had us read this article called The Worst Friend Date That I've Ever Had. And it really resonated with me, all
Mm.
the different parts of it. And we're going to link that also in the show notes. But one of the parts in the article talked about how do you ask a friend on a date? You know, like how do you, Karen, you just were saying this, like, how do I slither in and be like, so
Yeah.
you want to do, you know, like,
Mhm.
anyway,
It's so
so
awkward.
Mhm.
yes, 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 yes. How do you tell a friend, like, I've been searching for you. You're my unicorn. I have a crush
Mhm.
on you.
Um,
How do you ask them out?
Mhm.
I don't.
I
I'm
know.
so awkward and nervous, and it's so weird. It's like it taps into like my younger what's the word? Like
Insecurities? Fears?
insecurities. Yes, exactly. Yeah, like I feel like I have grown into a confident, independent woman, and then I find myself feeling these feelings, like these middle school feelings of self-doubt, insecurity. it it's upsetting. It's upsetting to know that that's still there somewhere.
Mhm.
And I don't really honestly know. Like we have a couple that we met through our son, our son, the matchmaker. Um, and we took to them, and they are very similar to us, like, and very blunt. And so we have joked with each other about how awkward it is making friends at this stage in our lives, and kind of bonded over that. um, Apparently, what drew them to us was, I've learned this as we had dinner recently. The husband had said that the reason why he like wanted to actually like get to know us, like, and have our kids hang out or whatever, was because we were at a birthday party. Speaking of birthday parties, and he said something to me about the kids, and apparently I said, I know I have a child here, but I'm not really a kid person. which, which like I don't remember saying, but I was like, yeah, that's definitely something I
Definitely
would
something you're
say.
saying.
Yeah.
And
Set
apparently
up my tombstone.
he said like he went home from that party and told his wife like we got to hang out with them. So
That's
he
amazing.
he and they kind of like uh they were the pursuers, which was great because I enjoyed both of them as well. But like I am not
You
good
like
at
the
that.
chase.
I don't know how to be that,
Mhm.
Yeah,
So there's
yeah.
this other couple that now I'm trying to find ways to like see more. So the
Mhm.
latest thing is like we have this public pool in our neighborhood that's amazing, and so now I just like text them and I tell them when we're going to the pool, and they've shown up a couple of times. So I feel like we're becoming, you know, more than acquaintances.
Yes, that's a start.
I I really hope that like fast forward a few months, we're actually friends and they hear this and they're like, "Oh,
Mhm.
Karen's a creep. We're not going to hang
Mhm.
out with them anymore." But it's so weird as a
It's
grown
Mhm.
hard.
woman to like have these weird, awkward feelings.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I know I like not like my current team that I work with at school, we have kids similar age, and it's funny because at the end of the school year we're like, oh my gosh, like over the summer we're gonna get together. And I was like, yeah, my we joined the my neighborhood pool, you can come with us to that, blah 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 blah. I saw them for the first time last week, and it was to plan for teaching. We did not get the kids together one time. And we had like every intention to. And so it's like how do we, and that's really more like, because this is what came to my mind when you were like asking people out, like how do we ask people out when you're like busy as all get out, like, I was just like, we had every intention of doing it, like getting together, and we never did, just simply because life, and summer's crazy too, like when they were on vacation and we were back and I was out of town, like it just never actually really worked out. But it's the adding in the factor of like busy too is like, I don't know.
It is hard. And it's like you have to be really intentional about making time for that, because we also need, like, that is an important part for all of us, to have human connection that's not work and that's not children, but that's to your earlier point, Manny, that like fills our own buckets, which is important.
Yeah, it's like goes
hard.
Back to like about those spaces, right? Of like, where do those exist when, for me, I, have a separate political ideology where I don't engage in drinking, where I, you know what I mean? Like where do those places exist where I can go and have those, like my own hobbies, essentially, which is why I got into the writing class. But, I'll just close with one story, and then we'll do confessionals. But we hosted a father-daughter dance, or the pregame before the father-daughter dance for Millie this year, and I had never, met any of her classmates' parents because, as we talked about in previous podcasts, I don't do drop-offs. I don't like talking to people. I get inundated with group texts. Like, it's just kind of hard.
Yeah.
So we hosted everybody at our house, and there were these two moms, and I do not know how this conversation came up, but speaking of gossip and Bravo, like we got on Bravo, and the way that they were talking about Bravo and the shows that I watch, and we were just like, oh me and this one, like we were just going back and forth, and I was all jazzed. And the friend who I was just talking about, who I talk to every day, I was like, I have a crush on this woman. Like, where has she been my whole time moving to this place, And it turns out they're very good friends. So when I did my poetry event, she was there and was one of the people. And I was like, this is going to be the test, because I did my bodyguard piece, and I did it for them in a dress rehearsal, and she was bawling. And I was like,
yes.
After that happened, I saw them at lacrosse, and I was like, yes. And then her little girl turns around, and she's wearing a fucking Michigan shirt. I was like,
oh my gosh. I wasn't sure what you were going to say there, and I was feeling very nervous. But I feel like I live in Chicago. There are Michigan shirts every freaking everywhere I look. It's so yeah, but like I would literally eliminate 75% of
she was almost perfect.
So from now on, all your children wear in public is Buckeye gear.
Ohio State.
You had me follow this person, right?
No, this is a different person.
Oh, okay. Because I remember
a lot of Michigan people here too.
Yeah, because I remember you were like, you should follow this person on Instagram, and I did, and then whoever it was posted a bunch of Michigan stuff, and one of them I forwarded to you, like, you have me following a Michigan fan. Is this what you're doing to me?
Oh God, you guys! It's like right when I moved, like Ohio State started losing, and Michigan people started coming into my orbit. It was
right. That's how that works.
So wait, so what you're saying is this is your fault?
No, it's
that we're losing.
Fault. We need to win.
Oh, yeah.
You have put the universe out of off kilter. I
am that powerful.
You heard it here, everyone.
All right, guess we're moving back to Virginia. All right, so ladies, we're kind of at time here, or we are at time here. Anybody have any confessionals from this episode?
I do kind of have one. So I was at dinner with one of my friends, and we it was kind of like an invite only dinner, and there were people who were important to her in her life at this dinner, and there were some new friends in the mix, and I didn't know them, and that's fine. And I was like getting to know them, and I was kind of off put by like a couple of them. Like I felt like there were things that they were saying that I wasn't necessarily vibing with, and I was just kind of sir and I was kind of like I felt like if I were I think I was I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time formulating this. I think that I was like, I don't know about those people, and I don't know, like it made me nervous about how close that I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And so but I feel like I was projecting because like I am so protective of myself and like who I let in, and they could very well be great people, but at this point in my life wouldn't let them in. And I think there was kind of a hater, there was a kind of a jealous, there was kind of a it was my stuff, not their stuff. Does that make sense? And
Yeah,
and I think
absolutely.
it was more like I admire my friend who I was there to be with for being open and being willing
Mm-hmm.
to put herself out there. And maybe if those relationships don't last, like mine and her relationship will last, but if those relationships don't last, so what? Like she put herself out there to make new
Mhm.
friends, and she's felt connected to them, and good for her. And like I need to be a little less guarded because I could be missing out on opportunities for connection.
Yeah.
Because I think I was just like, how could you like have a new friend? We're old. Like, what are we doing? And but like why would I think like that? Like it's beautiful, and it speaks to her like how beautiful of a person she is, that she's open and letting people into her life. And it just made me realize like any negative feeling I think was my own
Yeah.
shit. And I
Steph,
yeah.
I um I'm so glad that you shared that story because you shared that story with me
Hmm.
when you were in town, and
Hmm.
I remember having very similar feelings, like almost judgmental. And I'm
Yes.
really checking my judgment.
Yeah.
I'm really focused on that at this stage in my life.
Hmm.
Um, but that was literally going to be my confessional too, of like, this conversation has made me realize
Hmm.
that we can make good friends at this stage in our
Hmm.
life just because we
Hmm.
haven't known them for forever.
Hmm.
And I think my reaction to that was a little bit of jealousy, I
Hmm.
would say. Like,
Yep.
Manny, when you were talking about your friends now in your community, and the women that you're finding that you're connecting with, there is a twinge of jealousy there. I'm like,
Hmm.
wait, I am your friend. You can't,
Hmm.
that, like, as if this is a zero sum game and you have
Hmm.
only so much love to give. And
Right.
by you being friends with them,
I'm
that
less
means
than.
I get less love. And that's
Hmm.
nonsense. And so it's
Hmm.
good that we're having this conversation so I can reflect on that.
Yeah.
But that is definitely my confessional of like, my immediate reaction is like, no, 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 no. Don't give your
Hmm.
love to just anybody. I
Hmm.
need all of it. Like
Yeah, that's
that's
like a full
real.
circle. That's like a full circle moment of when I was talking about like the scarcity mentality and
Mhm,
how I
Mm-hmm.
need to shift
Exactly.
to like abundance, right? Like I'm
mhm.
still here with you all, like spending time doing this.
Mhm,
We have our weekend planned in a couple of weeks. Like I'm still
mhm,
very much involved and committed. And I thought that I wasn't going to have the energy to do both. And what I'm realizing is actually both make my life more full, that it gives me more
Yeah.
energy and I'm able
mhm,
to actually be present in ways that I wasn't when I was isolating and stuff. So
mhm,
I have one confessional. I know it's getting a little long, but I will also say that I think, and maybe this is kind of tied to what we are saying, but I want to bring it back to like the focus of like why we do this podcast. And we were talking about labels and stereotypes. And I just think about our first episode where we were trying to introduce like our content and our concepts. And, I think in this situation, and I believe it was Karen, you asked us, like, are stereotypes bad? Are labels bad? Right. And I think in this situation, labels actually have helped us. I'm thinking to Stephanie with your friends, the line that you said, they're not my friends, they're my coworkers, right? And
Mhm.
I think by distinguishing that, you're able to now shift your energy and move into a space where those friendships are going to be coming to you. You make yourself more available and more attractive when you set up that boundary and that label of, like, this is what it is. This is what that relationship is. This is your
Mm-hmm.
label to me. And I hate to, like, compartmentalize like that, but I think sometimes we do need to be, like, a little bit more direct in that this is what this is, right? Because
Yeah.
we're wasting and expending energy in relationships that could be energy in relationships that are really actually going to fulfill us. So with that,
Love that.
Love it.
I think we're done.
Yes. So that rounds out the friendship series. Look forward to a bonus friendship series, or not friendship series, bonus friendship episode on platonic friendships. So that is coming
Yeah.
soon.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.
And the fox, and the green one, and the fox, and the blue one, and the fox, and the yellow one, and they're all made out of ticky tacky, and they all look just the same.